Yes, fight fans, good evening. I am Jay's Fight Talk, and we have a Sunday church in session. Next to me is my No Punches Pulled and Straight Talk co-host, host of Liam's Fight Night Picks, my good friend and statman, Liam Tully. How are we, brother?
I'm all good, brother. Been enjoying the weekend, enjoying the nice weather. I think we both fell victim to it yesterday, didn't we? We said we were going to get live and just day in the sun, and then just both crashed out, didn't we? We didn't
I
quite make it
woke
up.
I woke up at 7 o'clock. I tell a lie, I woke up at 12:30. I went out for some food, woke up at 12:30, and I thought, right, the prelims start at 1.
Yeah.
I'll have a drink, I'll chill, and then bam, it was 7 o'clock. So yeah, it was all good in theory, but unfortunately we missed it. But look, we caught up with the action. We're gonna come to that, but we'll sort of go in a timeline. We'll start with boxing. Friday night fights over in the US saw Deontay Wilder make his much anticipated Malik Scottless return to the squared circle. I was very underwhelmed. I'm not jumping on the bandwagon as much as people are saying that they've seen improvements. And, I thought he looked tentative. I thought he looked scared, shitless. He still has his arms like that when he jabs. You would not believe the guy's an Olympic bronze medalist.
No.
But again, I'll reference Audley Harrison. It doesn't necessarily transfer through to the pros, but his boxing fundamentals for me are shocking. And I've never seen any improvements throughout his career. He's done things that we could only dream of. But I've seen him live. I've seen how shit his footwork is. And if he didn't have concussive one-punch knockout power, I don't believe that Deontay Wilder would have got anywhere near the world top 20. What's your take on the fight?
Deontay Wilder 4 years ago does that in a round.
Without fear.
Yeah,
without fear.
Without fear, without not trusting his right hands, without being shop worn, gun shy, insert whatever analogy you want to into that. He does that within 6 minutes at the most. Is similar to what he done to Hellenius, if we're being really honest. Did he try to box for 6 minutes? Yes. The key word in that sentence is he tried. Did he look like he could box? No. The reality is Deontay Wilder has always been a one-trick pony. Tyson Fury exposed him. Joseph Parker sent him towards retirement. Zhang stole his soul. And now he's just on the gravy train seeing what money he can get. That performance on Friday night didn't do anything for me. I mean, the ref stopped it with the geezer on his feet because he fell into the ropes. It wasn't even a knockdown. It's, a shame.
It feels like they are just trying to manufacture the Anthony Joshua fight, and they're just doing whatever it takes to get those two together to have a 90,000 sellout Wembley, all singing, all dancing show, and everybody makes a load of money because ultimately, and I'm going to upset a certain demographic, but there are casual boxing fans that are part of this Anthony Joshua generation. Because look, whatever I think about Anthony Joshua on a personal level, I can't take away from the fact that he brought eyes to the sport, or should I say, Eddie Hearn and Matchroom brought eyes to the sport around Anthony Joshua.
Yeah.
The housewives. He's the housewives' favourite. He is a modern day Frank Bruno. I'm old enough to remember Frank Bruno in his heyday. Wasn't necessarily the best, but he had the all-round package. He had some great marketing. And people sort of felt like the new Frank. So everybody sat around the TV and watched him. And I get that with Anthony Joshua. They brought a demographic to the table. So for those fans that will watch Joshua fight anybody, to build up the Wilder fight, this devastating puncher, the former world champion that's only lost to, X, Y, and Z, it'll sell out. We know it will. We'll watch it. We'll do a watch along. The problem for me is that people now are getting fights based on name value rather than what they can actually do or bring to the sport. I like to see progression and people getting opportunities based on what they've done. Wilder's done fuck all for the last 5 years. He's done absolutely nothing. When Fury got up at 13 or 14, whatever the count was on when he got up, right? When that crushed his soul. There's a video of him blowing kisses to his family and then his face drops because he'd given everything he had to get to that point. That crushed him then, because he then realised that that doesn't necessarily always get you out of trouble. And up to that point, it had always got him out of trouble. We've seen him be. Luis Ortiz was giving him a boxing lesson until he knocked him out. You know, and he's been behind him fights before, and he's what was the Polish kid called when he
Smilka.
knocked it?
Arthur
That's
Smilka.
it.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing that good in that fight. You know,
look what Chisora done to Spilker. Sorry to cut you off, mate. Chisora done Spilker in 2 rounds. I think that tells you everything you need to know. And Pat, this is exactly what I was about to say. Do either of them have a lot left? No. Does AJ seemingly have more left? Yes.
I think AJ is a better boxer anyway.
AJ, that's what I was about to say. AJ is a better boxer, but AJ hasn't shown he's gun shy yet. Even though he got knocked out on his face against Dubois, he went out after rocking Dubois with 2 huge right hands that Daniel Dubois 3 years prior to that fight would have got dropped from, if that makes sense. So that's the evolution of Dubois as well. I think, look, we should have got AJ Dubois 2018 to 2020. That was the time for that fight. We didn't get it. For whatever reason, we didn't get it. Are we probably going to get it now? Yes, because Turkey flipping loves his heavyweights. Then he'll put on 2 heavyweights you've never heard of in his front room if it means that they get to fight. So I think we're still going to see it. But it's not the same fight. It's just not. My biggest fear is after Usyk Dubois next month, the belts go up in the air. Joshua Wilder gets announced and Turkey has enough sway that we get a world championship on it, which wouldn't be deserved for either of them. AJ coming off of losing to Dubois and Wilder coming off of 3 years of nothingness, 2 defeats and 1 mediocre win against a club level opponent. It wouldn't be worthy of a world title fight, but you and I are cynical enough to know that we're probably going to see a form of world title in the fight because Usyk Dubois is
100%. I think that's what they're building up for. They're building up for one of those two to hopefully get. I think there's more chance probably of I don't know, the way the WBC are, they'd probably make Joshua versus AJ for the WBC belt. Because, I mean, Usyk will be off into the sunset, I believe. Dubois will be licking his wounds because I expect him to get beat up in that fight. I think Usyk will stop him this time. I think Usyk will put it on him. So the next down the list has got to be the likes of Joseph Parker, who I believe is due to announce a fight fairly soon.
Caballero is the interim champion for the WBC. So,
but who's Caballero going to fight? They're not going to put him in with Joshua. Absolutely not. He'll steamroll Joshua. I think Joshua now is only going to get put in fights where it's stacked in his favour, where he's going to win. And I get that fighters are always supposed to believe that they're going to win every fight. But me and you have been in this sport long enough to know that fighters go into fights not knowing whether they're going to win. They think they can win, but there is the promotion and the team behind them. There's reasons why fights have been avoided and not been taken because they're not confident that their guy's going to win. I don't think we'll see Joshua in fights that, other than the Fury fight, if they can make the Fury fight, because I think money will supersede any kind of doubts that they may have in the build-up to that fight. But yeah, I expect us to see Wilder and Joshua lacing up, standing opposite each other within the next 6 months, for me, I think. But I haven't seen anything from either of them. We haven't seen Joshua since the defeat. And that win, 7 rounds to get rid of that guy is shocking for me.
Not Wilder-esque. It's not the Wilder we've seen all the way through.
Fearless. Wilder's not fearless anymore. And that's taken something away from not just the mystique and the character and the brand, but I think within himself, the minute he realised he wasn't unbeatable, it sort of crushed him because he won't put his chin out there like he used to do. He'd put his chin out there, not worried, because he used to think, well, I hit harder than you anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas now people can take that shot or have taken that shot. It's not killing people. He's not the fighter he once was, and that worries me, him going into a fight. I think Joshua will splatter him, and Joshua's not the guy that he was.
No. Look, it's a shame, isn't it? Because, look, yes, we knew what Deontay Wilder was, but at least you knew you were guaranteed a stoppage in his fights.
Yeah.
That's how it was. That Deontay Wilder on Friday that I watched watch back on Saturday morning was a shell of the man that was the most fearsome guy in boxing for what little that was worth, everything we were being fed. No point talking about it, mate, because
No.
we know what's going to happen with him, but we know also it's not the fight it would have been 5-6 years ago.
No. So what we'll do, we'll caveat straight over to Hull, I believe it was, that saw the European light heavyweight title on the line between Pitters and Ray.
Yep.
A close fight, decent fight, if you want to say that. I think it was it 115, 114 times 2 on 115, 113. I don't believe the result was wrong. I think I've watched it twice and had Ray winning both times. I don't know how you feel about that fight, and did you score it the same as most people did ringside?
Yeah, look, I had Bradley Ray probably 4-2, 5-1 after 6. He started like an absolute freight
Fast.
train.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
is
yeah.
what you needed to do. Look, all the talk in the week leading up to the fight was Shakan Pitters is going to get into his boxing rhythm early. Everything's going to come off the jab, and he's either going to win it wide on the scorecards or maybe get a late stoppage. That was the talk all week. That's even what Izzy Asif didn't directly say, but he hinted at it, didn't he, during fight week? And when the promoters hinted at a certain way, it's almost saying to the other fighter, go on, prove me wrong. Go on, ruin my plans. Look, Shakan Pitters has had awful luck this year. He was meant to fight for this belt in January. Fight got pulled. He was meant to fight for it again in April time. No, sorry, then Brad Ray was meant to fight for it in April time. The same opponent pulled out on
The worst
fight.
luck.
So, look, it's become a vacant belt. The EBU should have made it vacant after January, but whatever. It was finally a vacant belt. Pisser's got his shot. Bradley Ray kind of stuck 2 fingers up to Boxer. After the Tyler Denny loss, they made him their golden boy, and he's the one we're going to take from the trenches. Well, that's what you're doing with Brad Ray until he lost that fight. So, yeah, look, it's a good win. It's a European title at light heavyweight. I think the rematch is probably a fight we will get because it's what makes sense for both men as well. Shakan Pitters, by his own admission, started probably too slow. Did he come on strong down the back straight? Yes, but for me, Ray always
too little, too late.
Yeah, Ray already had enough rounds in the bank. I gave him, like I say, 5 in the first 6. A draw at a push I could have seen, but you couldn't give Pitters that fight.
No.
I think we'll get a rematch on a GBM cars later this year because I don't really see where either of them go away.
Yeah, that was my next question. What was next? Do you think they'll make them fight again? Because there's no name springs to mind of anybody deserving or who would want that fight, really.
Ben, look, the only other way I can see it is light heavyweights. You give Brad Ray to Ben Whittaker just for Ben Whittaker to say he's a European champion. It's not the sexiest of fights, despite we know what Ben Whittaker can do when he's on it, as we saw in the Cameron rematch back on Easter weekends.
I think Ray would spoil, though. I think it'd be a horrible watch.
Yeah, so do I. Look, if you want to go through light heavyweights in the UK, you've got Willie Hutchinson, Dan Aziz, Buatsi, Callum Smith. We know where he's going, but let's mention him. Then you've got your Whittakers, your Liam Camerons. I think the Whittaker, Cameron, Dan Aziz, Paul, let's go that side, is probably more likely, but
I think Cameron's going back down in there.
He should do. He said he is.
We say that. He's been calling out flipping KSI and Darren Till, and he's trying that now. I think he called out Wakey Wines at one point. I'm pretty sure
he did. He did when he fought for Misfits.
Did he not walk Wakey Wines into the ring, though? Like a month before that, I believe. I didn't watch it. I just heard. So I think Liam's trying. Look, we'd all do it. I think he's trying to cash cow himself on the social media site Misfits, which makes sense really because he'll get big. Look, he's had his moment in the sun. He's had his 15 minutes, which was the Ben Whittaker paydays. The way he got battered in the rematch and proved a lot of people wrong and right. He would have to work his way up to that level again. He hasn't got the time. No. I don't believe he's got the skill to get another fight of that magnitude. So he's probably his best bet is to use some of the momentum he got coming into the Whittaker fights to try get a crossover fight. As much as it kills me and pains me to say it, I know Liam, and if anyone's deserving of making a quick few quid, knocking out flipping content
Guns.
creators,
Yeah.
then fine. As long as the content creator's not myself or one of my mates, then I'm happy for him to go get his bag, so to
Yeah.
speak. But yeah, I don't see anything other than them rematching that on a bigger show, maybe somewhere down the line.
Yeah, I think it's a rematch, but like we say, Whittaker's now a free agent. So can I see a position where Izzy makes an offer to Ben Whittaker for a one fight deal? Well, we don't know what's going on with Boxer. Absolutely, I can, because he puts someone like Ben Whittaker on a GBM show and it will just do absolute numbers for him because of the social media appeal that Whittaker has, despite his
Yeah,
talent.
in it.
Yeah, backing it
Don't
up.
don't you think it's funny that it's been radio silence from Team Boxer regarding the TV deal after Ben bigged himself up and said there was a massive announcement coming, and that's sort of fallen flat. We haven't heard anything.
Mate, no one knows what's happening. I mean, the Boxer conversation's a whole show on its own, but it's strange, mate. I think Ben Shalom is finding out how cutthroat this industry is at the moment. He thought he had something there, it's not there. And I think behind the scenes, Boxer is scrambling around to survive. And I know that sounds a really brutal way of putting it, but Boxer is scrambling to try and survive.
Yeah, it's not good to see because they had some really good fights and some decent shows have had over the past
Have
12
had.
months. They got some decent momentum, some decent stars. They're all leaving now, and we've had the likes of Callum Simpson drop sort of snidey comments. Caroline Dubois has
More
passed
than
her
once.
piece.
Caroline's done it, yeah.
Savannah Marshall had a lot to say. Whittaker's now a free agent, so and Adam Azim came back and was gonna fight and then didn't fight, and it's very messy. So it should be an interesting few months. Right, let's fly across to the States, shall we? As much as it pains me, I'm gonna have to talk about one of these Misfits cards. I'm gonna have to talk about the Disney lad, Jake Paul. Because of the undercard, and he's clever in what he does. He puts some good fights on the undercard. I mean,
To
do
mask
we
him,
start?
yeah.
Yeah, Floyd Schofield, absolutely dog walking. Well, he didn't even dog walk him; he just battered him. My mate Tevin. I mean, what the hell?
It's kind of
Is
so
he the
I
real deal? Is he the real deal, Liam? Sorry, before you start, but and I'm pretty sure you'll cover this, but is Floyd Schofield that good, or is that what should have happened to Tevin Farmer 2 fights ago?
All right, so I boldly picked Schofield to beat Shakur, didn't I? That was my pick for that card. And I said, I just think he needs the stage, he needs the opponent, and he's going to do it to Shakur Stevenson. Look, he ended up on a IV drip in hospital and wasn't well, whatever the thing behind that was. And then he got put on this card. And me, you, and Sam kind of went, okay, that's interesting. Tevin's coming out really soon after the Zepeda rematch. I think it was announced 2 weeks after that rematch.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a points decision, but Farmer, that's okay, fine. That is Floyd Schofield's coming out party last night or early hours of this morning for us in the UK. Yes, Tevin Farmer's at the tail end of his career. Put any asterisks you want on that fight. But William Zepeda could not do that through 22 rounds of boxing with him. Doesn't matter what you say. For a 12
There's
round...
not many done that to Tevin Farmer.
Nope.
I can't remember the last time he got beat up like that and just battered. I can't remember. I was racking my brains today without box wrecking it, and I can't really remember the last time he took a good hiding like that.
It doesn't happen. He got absolutely splattered within 3 minutes. And you could sort of tell, sometimes in fights, you can tell from the stance and how both men come towards center ring or don't when the bell rings to start the fight, can't you? We've spoken about it before on lives. And you just had a feeling. Did I think Schofield was going to do it in the first 3 minutes? No, absolutely not. But I had a feeling he was going to make a statement. And regardless of the context of where Tevin's at in his career, that is a win over a former world champion that has taken someone that is now fighting Shakur Stevenson the distance twice. That's what that is. Floyd Schofield has now put himself back in the shop window to fight the winner of Shakur and Zepeda, because that's happening in 3 weeks' time? That's what he's done. Yep. That's a statement. And that's the type of fights we want to be talking about. on a Jake Paul card. We got
Absolutely.
Zerdo getting a points win over Dorticos, and it's kind of what you expected. You didn't think he was going to take too many risks.
Safety first. He just coasted through that, didn't he? He wasn't in any trouble at any point really in that fight.
He knew, didn't he, after 3-4 rounds, he could win it on points quite comfortably. And what did he do? Exactly that. That's what he done.
Shout out Holly Holm, making her long-awaited second debut in boxing. I think she's about 78 years old. But I've got a soft spot for the preacher's daughter, Holly Holm. Anybody that doesn't know her, she was the girl that burst the Ronda Rousey bubble with the head kick heard around the world. She, so she was the UFC bantamweight champion, but before that, she was the unified. I don't know how many divisions she unified, but look, she was a world champion several times over. She sort of hit a brick wall in MMA. She was losing fights to girls. I think her last fight was Kayla Harrison beat her. I believe that was her last fight, or Kayla Harrison stopped her. She's gone back to boxing, and the girl she boxed last night, I'm not going to pretend that I know anything about her, but she was unbeaten. And Holly Holm, put on I think it was 100 points to 90 or so. I think she just 10-0'd her, something like that. But, I'm excited because Holly Holm can box. Whether she's in her 40s or not, she's a consummate professional. She's always in the gym. She's kept the same team that she's had throughout her boxing and MMA career. She actually transitioned within Jackson Wink, which is strange. You don't normally see. They usually they don't normally do both in the same gym. It's normally an MMA or a boxing gym, or they have, affiliates. And I'm excited because there's some big fights potentially out there. We could see Holly Holm challenge maybe one of the girls we've got over here, because I'm pretty sure she can make 147. She fought at 135. So she could make 140, 135, 147. We could see her over here challenging someone like, don't want to say Caroline Dubois, somebody like that. I mean, do you know what I'm saying, though, don't you? She's got name value, certainly stateside.
I just think, unfortunately, she's ended up turning over 6-7 years too late, moving over to boxing. I think the biggest thing for Holly is age and time. Does she have the hands and the footwork and the ability? Undoubtedly. What was her USP in the UFC? Well, it's what she done to Ronda Rousey with her hands, with her time,
jab
and
and move,
footwork.
Slipping under.
The question is, has she still got enough of that to challenge this new wave of female boxers coming through? As much as I'd love the fairy tale to happen,
probably
I just don't think it's not there, mate. And that's not me trying to cop you a balloon, because we've spoken before. We share an affinity for what Holly Holm done in the UFC and what she done before that in the amateurs. She's just 6 or 7 years too late, mate. And it's a shame.
Yeah.
That's the sad thing.
Yeah, the problem is women's boxing's got a load of money now, and it's come when she should have gone back. The fights weren't there, so she would have just left the UFC, where she's made a name, made herself sort of a household name, and made a lot of money and had some massive fights. If she'd have turned over then, she'd have turned her back on probably more money than what she'd have made in boxing. Yep, she might have won the world titles, but she's already had that. She's won the belt. She's got a wall full of MMA. I think she won the Invicta belt as well. So I think she's won a couple of MMA organisations. Definitely the IBF WBC belt she's had at one time. But look, it was good to see her in a natural habitat.
Finally,
so to speak, finally. Because I don't remember. I think I watched a fight. I want to say the German girl when she got brutally knocked out. Do you remember? Which was like holding onto the ropes. I don't really remember her because women's boxing then wasn't what it is now. They were rarely televised. So, good luck to Holly Holm. Look, let's touch on the main event, because it did have a former professional boxer in one of the corners in Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Now, I'm not going to say that these fights are fixed, but fucking hell, could they be any more? Could they look any less fixed? I'm not a stat guy. That's your.
Don't bring me into this, mate. I know where you're going.
But I've watched it now, right? Twice. I always like to watch things at least twice, just so I can get a feel for whether I got it wrong the first time. And the first time I counted 14 punches. The second time I counted 22. He threw less than 30 punches in a 10-round fucking fight. What's going on? Did he just turn up to get paid there or what? I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Liam? Give us your thoughts on a cruiserweight versus a middleweight.
For one time Jake Paul's been allowed to have a proper fight, he was beaten. The one time you couldn't give an opponent the scripts because regardless of the family behind them, they weren't going to swallow the bullshit.
That's what
they weren't going to let it happen.
But that's what's so sorry.
Go on.
Do you know what's so frustrating about it all, right? Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. 10 years ago was going toe to toe with Sergio Martinez, right? And was in trouble, had Sergio in trouble, but nowhere near as good as his dad. So let's forget that. But good. Like, I would say, very similar to Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. Can fight to a decent level, but he will never reach the heights of their fathers ever. But that is impossible, right? But you can't tell me that Tommy Fury can outbox Jake Paul and Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. can't. He didn't want to. I don't believe. What I think is, I don't think they're fixed fights as such where somebody comes in and says, right, you're going down in the fourth. Or
No. I don't believe that either. I just
But I don't believe that the opponents are sent in there to win, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Or try hard. It's like a sparring session, isn't it?
They are financially compensated in such a way where they're happy to just not get stopped. It's a payday. But they are compensated in such a way where they're just happy to not get stopped. And Chavez fought in such a way last night where he didn't want to become the next meme for the next 6 months of the Disney kids. Start off with him doing his Disney Channel shit, then he's knocking the guy out. He didn't want to become the next Tyrone Woodley from the second fight.
And didn't Anderson Silva beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.? I'm pretty sure he did, didn't he?
That's why Jake Paul fought Anderson Silva, because he's beaten Julio Chavez. Apparently, it was going to be Julio Chavez Jr. and then Anderson beat him. Anyway, Jake Paul then stands in the ring calling out any name under the sun.
He called out Gervonta Davis and Anthony Joshua. What the hell? He's a dickhead, isn't he? I'll fight you, Jake.
Look, that's done whatever it's done in pay-per-view buys last night. It's done decent numbers at the Honda Center. That's all I'm going to say on that, because you've probably seen the same reports as I have today about how they padded that out.
Yeah, I think it's wearing thin. I think with a lot of people now, because he's not fighting. He's not in fights as such. You
know what, mate? When he was doing it, and it was on Triller or whatever it used to be on, you sort of went, okay, yeah, that's separate.
It had its place, didn't it, over there?
Now you've got Oscar De La Hoya there on a co-pro with Chavez Jr. But you've got Floyd Schofield on the card. You've got Golden Boy fighters on the card, and it's blurring the lines too much. Yeah. The only thing that was missing last night is they didn't put Chris Mannix, Todd Grisham, and Darren Barker was over there for his last one. That's the only thing that was missing. They didn't go a full DAZN presentation team last night. It just... It is wearing thin. I mean, it's worn thin for us for a long time, mate. But it's starting to wear thin, I think, for the public now. What Jake Paul does next, does anyone care?
I mean, no. So I don't know what happened there, Hand History Vault. So I do apologise for not getting a notification, but thanks for joining us. For me now, right, as a proper boxing fan or a proper fight fan, I want to see him fight one of three people. Tommy Fury again. Just put that shit to bed. Darren Till or Ty Mitchell. Someone that can fight. Fight a boxer. Just box a boxer, because he's talking about, look, I know what they try to do. They try to get him a shot. He'll probably fight Badu Jack, but I think Badu Jack will beat the dog shit out of him. He needs to fight a fighter now. I know he's fought these MMA fighters and whatnot, and I know Darren Till's a former MMA fighter or still sort of an MMA fighter, but Darren Till can box. I mean, I'd even watch him fight Carl Froch, but I don't think he'll do that either.
Yeah,
because I think even the kids are getting bored of it now because his opponents, and like Julio, like you said, Chavez Jr. just didn't want to be a meme last night. That's all
Yeah.
he did. He just don't be a meme, and stayed within himself for. Here we go. I've literally just said that Andy Strivok because Badu Jack's like 40 odd, 44. I want to say 40.
42, I think 42.
So yeah, he's at the right time for Jake Paul. They'll probably give him another 6 months and then. But he's going to get a WBC title shot, I think, eventually. I think that's what they're aiming for at Cruiser.
Yeah, mate, I don't want to waste any more time talking on him. I think I agree with you. We want to see him fight and someone else on. Have you both talked about? Yeah, I saw it, mate.
Nah.
I will say this. It
Zerdo,
won't happen.
batter him. No chance. He'll batter him.
Mate, it won't happen, but if Zerdo Jake Paul gets made, Zerdo's belts need to be made vacant so Opetaya can do what he's destined to do.
Well, it has to. Jake Paul should not be in the rankings. He hasn't boxed anybody within the rankings. You can't get a ranking based on beating opponents. So that's not how it works. So what?
You can with the WBC, mate.
Do you know what I'm saying, though?
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
50-0 white collar, for example, turnover pro, and then get ranked in the WBC because that's what he's doing. He's fighting not white collar, obviously, because some of these are
limited level.
Shout out Ben Askren, by the way, a former Jake Paul opponent. He's really poorly in hospital. I believe he got pneumonia. There was complications with his pneumonia, and I believe he's on the waiting list for a lung transplant that now his insurance is not covering. So I believe that there are some GoFundMe pages. I think Jake Paul has donated, or the Paul brothers themselves, which props for doing that, boys. So if you can donate, go over to Ben Askren's social media pages. Even if you can't, just send some well wishes over there. So shout out to Ben Askren. What are you saying here, Pat? Rumour has it Jake Paul will be ranked top 15 in the WBC and another one by the IBF, WBA or WBO. I think that shows us that the sanctioning bodies now are literally prostituting themselves for whoever will pay them the most. They've always prostituted themselves, but always within boxing. Now, like you said, the lines are blurred, so they'll just go with whoever. And this, if I wanted the belts banning before, then this puts that nail in that coffin for me. You got anything further to add to that before we shut this shit down?
No, mate, because it's a load of shit. And if Jake Paul is in the WBC rankings before the end of this year, then yeah, tells you everything you need to know about Maurizio Sullivan and the governing bodies. But that's all I want to say.
Okie dokie. Right, before we touch on last night's UFC, I'm just watching Peyton Talbot against Lima. Peyton Talbot's really good, man. But it's been announced today. The rematch that nobody wanted to see. Well, I didn't, but Ben Eubank or Eubank Jr. Ben 2 is taking place somewhere in London is it September the 22nd?
20th.
20th. Why they haven't announced the venue, I don't know. Because I mean, are they edging for Wembley?
I've got a theory, but I'll let you do this and then I'll share my theory.
Okay. It's not a fight I wanted to see again. I wanted to see Ben challenge for a world title, and I'd have been happy to see Eubank Jr. call it quits. I think he's done enough within the sport. Killed himself getting down to 160. I believe he's going to get down to 160 again. Obviously, the British Boxing Board of Control are satisfied that he did or didn't use a sauna to make weight for the last fight, and they are willing to say nothing to get their 3% or whatever percent they allegedly get from sanctioning the fight. But what's your thoughts on the fight, my mate?
Unnecessary, not needed, money talks, here we are. My theory is, and I've already shared this over on my Twitter page, is they've said it's going to be in London. Spurs and Wembley are the two stadiums they're leaning towards. Spurs are away that day to Brighton because I had a quick look at it. They are gauging the social media reaction to it.
Yeah, before they book the venue.
Monumental, they'll go for Wembley. Look, Wembley are 6 days shy of Oasis's second lot of comeback gigs if they don't beat each other up before that point when we get to September the 20th.
I've got tickets available for sale.
I was waiting for that, mate. I was setting you up. But look, so thanks, is it practical to put a boxing event on? Yes, because all the, flooring that needs to go down on the pitch will be there. But the fact it was Spurs first time, the way the show worked, the way it looked with the ring walks, etc. For me, and we've spoken about this at length, added to the theatre of it. You don't need to go anywhere else. I get it. They're trying to gauge the reaction to see if they can do more than the 55,000 loosely that were there in April. But I think the reality is it will be announced for Spurs. Tottenham are away that day. There's no clash with that, and we don't need it. But money talks, mate. And
It does. Sorry, go on.
it's in the same. Look, all the clauses are the same. So what are we going to get differently? Other than probably Eubank Jr., unfortunately, ended up in hospital for 3 days again after the fight. Whether he wins or loses. That's not me being negative or horrible, but if he's got to push himself to that level again, he will ultimately, in September, if it's as muggy and as warm as it is now, outdoors, that will play a part in the fight. He could end up in a serious way in hospital again, which no one wants to see.
Yeah, just briefly. Sorry, Andy Shrivol. Yeah, you were a little bit late. We didn't really go in depth on Zodo Dorticus really because it was a non-event of a fight for me. Zodo boxed really safe as though he just knew. He coasted for me, coasted through. I think he boxed decent the first 2 or 3 rounds, maybe 4, and then after that he just went through the motions once he knew he could beat his opponent. So we didn't really cover it in any great depth. Anything you want to add further on that, Liam, before we jump back into...
Serdo knew after 4 rounds he couldn't get beaten by Dorticus, but he didn't want to take the risk because he knows what's coming. So he boxed safety first. It was a non-event, unfortunately. When he had an opportunity to go make a massive statement, he was happy to coast. That's my opinion.
Yeah, same. Similar. Yeah. Just going back to Eubank Jr., Ben, the magic happened in the first fight. The argument between the dads, the issue with the gloves, the issue with the wrapping, Billy Joe Saunders. I said that his dad had turned up, and his dad turned up. I just wish they could have snuck him in and done it as Tina Turner was playing. You know, and his dad come in. I'd said to my missus in the morning, because she was saying, I can't believe his dad's not there. And I said, listen, his dad will be there. I said, what they're going to do is the lights will dim. They'll start playing Simply the Best, and then his dad will come out.
Yeah.
What I mean is, right, because you got a live reaction when that came up from me. I was screaming and flipping, all sorts of... Were you there? You went to that, did you?
No. I was working, so I just got home, was eating some scran quickly, turned it on. It's before I came live with you and spat a load of pizza across the front room. Yeah, going mad at him. I actually think in some ways the fact that, yes, it would have been epic if he came out of the ring walk, but the fact we saw him earlier in the night probably done everyone a favour because we went nuts. Social media went nuts. By the time of the fight, it all calmed down to the fight. If we didn't see Steenie until the ring walks, might have taken away from the fight, if you get what I mean. Because
I get, yeah.
It's Steenie. Yes, it would have looked epic if if the lights went up in the stadium and he's there with his flipping sheriff's badge on. It's got from Toys R Us and all sorts, but.
No.
I know it's serious.
It's legit.
I know it's been given.
He's not a cop. He's a fucking... He got allowed to sit in a cop car for a week, I think, and they gave him a badge. Okay.
We can all do it if we are asked nicely enough. Anyway, I think they've done it right. I think the rematch.
It's not as big. It's not as big for me. I don't believe it's as big.
You know what that first fight needed? It needed massive controversy. Do you get what I mean? So
it needed Ben to get it on points or something, didn't it? Or stopped by a headbutt
or a headbutt. You don't have DQ. That. So you're now selling a rivalry between 2 families that's 3-0 in the Eubank's favour. Do you see what I mean? I mean, it will sell because you'll get your more casuals in there. I'm sure there'll be some very interesting £25 tickets around again on fight week. But look, it is what it is, mate. Money talks. Turkey, if you're going to do it for a ring again, don't have Anthony Yards and Lyndon Archer as the co-main. Give us
no.
Callum Smith. No. Look, I think Callum Smith and Benavidez will land out in Vegas. But if you can find a way to get Callum Smith and Benavidez as the co-main to that, I think everyone would be happy, wouldn't they?
Absolutely.
That's the level we're talking, because everything else on that card, even though every fight was points, we all enjoyed every fight, really, apart from the co-main event. That's the reality. I don't think we'll see Callum Smith and Benavidez. That looks like that's Vegas the week after they're talking about this second Ben Eubank fight being, or Eubank Ben, sorry, before Eubank gets upset. Yeah, look, I think we need a similar caliber of undercard to last time, just minus what the co-main was. Give us a British title fight, give us a world title eliminator, maybe a world title fight, because that then carries you through the night nicely into what is a main event being made on surnames more than anything else.
Yeah, quickly, I forgot. I forgot, but for anybody that hasn't seen, my good friend, family friend, pretty much family, but Troy Williamson's back in. He's got a big fight in August. He's fighting
Yeah,
Mark Dickinson at 168, Battle of the Northeast in August the 9th, I want to say, on the Matchroom show, is it?
August 9th in Newcastle. Cameron Vong, it looks like the Gavin Gwynn rematch is going to land on that card. It looks like it's going to be a good card. Shared a few tweets with Troy yesterday after he put his post out, and he said for a long time, hasn't he, that his best weight is higher than we would maybe expect. People that
Yeah,
don't know what he's done in the amateurs, we've spoken about it at length away
yeah,
from here. But if we're going to be realistic, it's the last roll of the dice. You can't make
yeah,
all the
and
song and dance about
no,
then it not work out. It's got to work.
it's now or never for Troy. He's coming on the channel this week. I'm gonna have a chat with him this week. I've spoke to him off camera, and
Yep.
I'm gonna get him on. We don't do interviews. I think Troy's one of the only people other than Billy Nelson, I think, that we've had on collectively. So I'm gonna have a conversation with him this week. Liam might join me if he's available. I just want to have a chat and see where his head's at. I know where his head's at because I speak to him off camera, but I'd like people to know where he's at, what this fight means to him. You know, and as Liam said, it's probably the last roll of the dice at his age, the level he wants to box at. Troy doesn't want to be a gatekeeper. He's definitely better than a journeyman. He's a former British champion. In fact, Ted Cheeseman never boxed again. You know, he retired Ted Cheeseman, and Ted Cheeseman was Eddie Hearn's boy at the time in that
It was
division.
that guy, wasn't he? That guy we talk about that gets the
154.
opportunities. Yeah.
Just nipping back here, something Andy Strivot said. Eubank Jr. versus Ben as the main, Boots and Madrimov as the co-main. Sounds good. I think they'd keep that for a main event. I think Boots will be doing that in somewhere like Philadelphia,
yeah.
I think.
Boots won't fight in the UK, unfortunately, unless it's the Conor Ben fight. It just
he
doesn't
wants
make
a main
sense.
event. But good shout. I think it'll be more of a British card, that like the other one. Yeah, so anyway, keep your eyes peeled and get yourself up there. I think you might even see Jay's Fight Talk ringside for that one. I normally try get to Troy's fights if I can.
Mate, it's a long trek up for me from down this way, but I'm tempted for that because like we say, we've had Troy on, we all interact with him away from the chats we've had with him. It's last roll of the dice. It's one of those fighters. We talk about fighters, don't we, all the time, that just don't seem to get the opportunities. Just seems to be avoided, and Troy is one of those. If you want to see someone do well, Troy is right up there, isn't he?
He's had, and I'm not just saying this because he's family to me, basically, but a family friend. Is even in his amateur career, he got the shit end of the stick, and it followed him to the pros. What I mean is, he was part of Team GB, and I'll put him in the same vein as the likes of Fraser Clark, for example, and Joe Joyce. So he was behind Anthony Fowler. So Anthony Fowler was the ABA champion. He beat Troy in the final. He was the GB pick at whatever 154 is. It 75 kg or something like that. I can't remember. But basically he was always second fiddle, and I don't mean that as though he wasn't as good, because he always had very close competitive fights with Fowler. Fowler was just that little bit more seasoned and experienced, and just had that edge on Troy, so he always had to sort of wait for his opportunity. Then his opportunity comes, he gets the WSB. What happens in one of his first fights? He fights the Cuban world champion, Olympic gold medal. It just always seems that. I mean, even when he won the British title, he was took in as an opponent. Mr. Cheeseman Senior, you still owe me a grand, by the way. I think it was a grand. It was at least a grand, we bet.
Mate, say a grand. It sounds nice.
It might have been more, to be fair. But he's always had it to do. But he'll never shy away from the big fights. We saw him recently fight a hot prospect, Jai Tucker, is it, that he boxed in Vegas? You know, on relatively short notice.
4.5 weeks, he said, didn't he? He said he literally, 4.5 weeks notice, 3 weeks training camp is what he said.
Yeah,
He made
so
no excuses, did he? He was, he made no
and he never
excuses.
does, and he never does. But we've got to be realistic. The age that he's at, the stage that his career's at, the fights and the results that he's had, the hard fights that he's had in the last 5 years. This is a home show for him. He's from Darlington, which is just down the road. Dickinson's from just down the road as well, so it'll be packed.
Local derby.
Local derby. So, last roll of the dice. So, yeah, make sure you tune in. It'll be on DAZN, live on DAZN, August the 9th. Williamson versus Dickinson. Right. What did I think that... Oh, no. One announcement. Devin Haney, Norman Jr. What's your thoughts? Will it happen?
Mate,
it's my first question.
I'm as cynical as you. No, but probably because it's Turkey. You see what I mean? No, because you're putting Norman Senior and Bill Haney up against each other, but they're going to be on their best behavior because it's Turkey. It's Norman's first crack at a Turkey payday. It's not like when he pulled out of the Boots fight. That was just Eddie Hearn willing to put a lot of money up. Fair play to Eddie for that. He doesn't get enough credit for what he's willing to do. It's a Turkey payday. If the two dads act like dickheads,
payday.
Turkey will give him a stare. They'll realise they're not going to get invited to the table to hold his hands, and they'll rein it in. That will ultimately be what happens. Is Devin Haney big enough against someone like Norman Jr. that we know can probably go as high as 160? I don't think he is. That's my concern.
I think he gets stopped.
Do I think Devin Haney's a better boxer? Perhaps, but I think the strength and grit and really lies with Norman Jr. If we see it, I think Norman wins.
I think Norman Jr. could be 6 or 7 rounds down, and then he'll catch him.
Punch.
Yeah. And we know that Haney's vulnerable. He got wobbled against Linares. He got wobbled against Lomachenko. He got more than wobbled against Ryan Garcia. He got buzzed in his last fight, but took it better than I expected.
The only punches that landed, but
yeah, Norman Jr. hits really, really, really hard, and I could not agree more with this statement. I believe Devin and Bill selling Devon's career. They both know the scam is over. Bill's always done that. Bill's a pimp. Bill is a pimp, and he said that himself. So I'm not saying anything derogatory or having a go. I was brought up. I've been in the business myself, so I know what it's like. But he's treating his son like a piece of work. He's pimping him out to whoever will pay the most. And I get your prize fighters, but he's put his son in some shitty positions. The Garcia fight was an absolute debacle in the lead up and the weight miss and I just think that Norman Jr. is all wrong for him.
Too big, too strong, can't outbox him, but it's that thing we say all the time. Can a better boxer stay away from a bigger puncher for 12 rounds?
Well, Ryan Garcia couldn't outbox Devin Haney, but he was timing him, wasn't he?
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to, mate. That is what it comes down to. I think it's intriguing. I don't think it's a Riyadh season main event, though.
Jim has a better chin, so Devin getting stopped faster.
I don't think it's a Riyadh season main event. I hope it's going to be announced around a massive card.
It's a New York main event for me, or
it's been announced as Riyadh season, though, not ring. So that anyway, mate, we'll see what happens. It's an intriguing fight, but I favoured a bigger Norman Jr. Who beats, by the way, when they eventually do fight. But right now at 147, Norman would beat Devin Haney quite comfortably for me.
Right, okay. So the next one is a bit of MMA. Last night saw UFC 317 in Vegas. I'm currently watching it for the third time. I've just got Beneil Dariush entering the making his walk to the cage. Have you managed to watch the card? Did you watch the prelims, the main card? What are your thoughts? For me, it's one of the better cards of the year. I don't know. What's your thoughts on the card itself or as a whole?
International Fight Week is UFC's flagship week. It's not just fight night. It is Hall of Fame inductions. It is the biggest UFC convention where as many fighters on the roster currently and as many past fighters that were fan favorites all come together. Like that Octagon side last night was stacked, and it wasn't stacked with your Donald Trumps or your actors and models, etc. It was stacked with current and past UFC fighters. It was brilliant. However, you then need the action in the Octagon to deliver. It delivered last night. Yes, the main event delivered, and Ilya done exactly what he said he would do all week and what he took his team out to celebrate for after the ceremonials on Friday. Didn't want to see it against Charles. We love Charles. Sam would be here saying exactly the same thing. We absolutely love Charles, as a lot of people do.
Gutted.
But you can't fault Ilya Taporia. But the whole card delivered, mate.
I mean,
Pantoja's going for 5 defenses in a row now. He chokes out Kai.
made it look easy, didn't it?
We probably got a contender for stoppage of definitely of the year, but of
Hermanson.
Maybe, probably one of the stoppages of the last.
Why did he smack him again?
Because Herb Dean didn't do enough to flip and get there quickly enough.
Hell, mate, he was out for I'm not exaggerating, like 5 minutes.
Let's go role reversal. Look what Mark Goddard done to get on top of Oliveira in the main event.
Yeah,
in his still a bad knockout, but not on the same level.
And he did take one when he was on the floor, didn't he? I think he took one.
Yeah, but Goddard had hold of his other fist. He was at least there. He couldn't do much more. Herb Dean still flipping, looking at his shoelaces on the other side of the octagon. And
I think Herb Dean has got, obviously, people get slower as they get older, but his reaction time has
half a step
really
off.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel as though he's watching the fight rather than watching the fight. Does that make sense to you? So he's watching it like we're watching it, because instead of watching it like ready to intervene. You know, he's sort of, oh shit, yeah, I better get in there.
Like you say, RoboCop watched Hermanson hit the deck, sort of was waiting to see the referee,
and then went in again.
Almost belatedly. It was almost as if he didn't want to do it. In that time, you know, there's enough time to make a cup of tea, do a bit of knitting, slightly exaggerating, but you get my point. He gave Herb Dean every chance to get in there, and it's almost as if he went, oh, you want me to hit him again? And then went, whack. There was no need for it.
Hand history vault. Are you talking about Van versus Royval? Because I don't believe at any stage Van was about to lose that fight.
Mate, what a way to kick off the night, by the way.
Mate, on 3.5 weeks' notice. I think they paid Royval his win and show, and they got a bonus for fighting the night.
Dana came out and said win, show, and bonus.
I'm trying to remember. Knockdown was the difference. I had him winning that fight. Not easily. I think the first round was fairly close, but I think Van's pressure paid off, and he was able to catch Royval on the exit, and Royval wasn't able to do the same. I actually picked Van to win that fight. My only concern, and I had this with me and Lerone, had a bit of an interaction with Lerone Murphy.
Yeah, seen it.
Over this. I think I'd said my only concern was him only having 3.5 weeks. Not so much his skill set. I just thought, what's it took out of him his last fight, and then to go straight back into a camp, you got to make work. Well, you hadn't even got a camp, really. You wait. It's your weight if he didn't put a lot on. But at 23 years old, and you don't see this often either, the UFC didn't let him get changed. They said, sit there. Sit ringside. You're next, kid. At 23. Wow. Impressed me. I mean, I've been impressed by him anyway. But at 23, the way he fights, his maturity, shot selection, he's definitely one to watch for the future. I'm not sure if he beats Pantoja, but it all depends. Look, I thought Moreno beat Pantoja in the third one.
I think a lot of people did. I
don't think Pantoja is great. Look, don't get me wrong, he's very, very, very good. I think DJ could beat him possibly still. I think Demetrius Johnson could. There's a chance. I don't think we'd see that because I think he's done now. But the fights he was having in one, Demetrius Johnson, if you take those as they are, because some of them weren't all MMA fights, they did those mixed fights, didn't they, where it was Muay Thai, when Roy Tong knocked him out. Do you remember?
Yeah.
He knocked him out because he were allowed to soccer kick him when he were on the floor. Pantoja's great, but I'm not 100% on the Pantoja train. I never thought for a minute Kai Kara France would beat him.
No.
I thought if he did, he'll knock him out in first round. He'll just catch him like he did Urseg. But other than that, I think Pantoja is starting to lap the division. And I think the only thing that would lose it for Van now at 23 is inexperience in terms of not being in those elite fights and knowing what to do in those situations. Because being in that situation against someone like Royval, who, yes, is the number one contender, but he's not a seasoned veteran world champion that's 5-6 defenses in. There'll be certain scenarios within that fight where you make the wrong decision and it's done. Kai Kara France did it. He was defending. He made the wrong move. He got his neck. And I think it could be something like that. But if anyone can beat him, I think Van can. Van's the man.
I agree with you. You've just stolen it from me. Van is the man, but I do think perhaps if it happens next, which is what it looks like it's going to be, it's too soon for him.
Yeah, and I don't think he's got much choice in that because there's nobody else. He's just beat the number one contender and was Kai second or third or something like that.
Kai was second. Kai was number 2.
But the divisions, I mean, what they're going to do, they'd have to bring Makachev back, but apparently he's a prick behind the scenes, so the UFC don't like him. But he's probably one of the ones that could give him a good fight, maybe. But, you know.
It is, unfortunately, because look, Pantoja is an outstanding fighter to watch. Van is also outstanding to watch, but you kind of think we could end up seeing that 4 or 5 times in the next 6-7 years, regardless of how the fights go, just because there isn't this strength in depth or competition there for them.
A bit further down the prelims, I'm going to say this, but I think Tracy Cortes may sound is perfect until she opens her fucking mouth. What a gobshite she is. She doesn't fight well enough to talk like that. Fuck off. That's not what Joe Rogan's there for. To listen to your bullshit. Fuck off. Flutter your eyelashes.
That's the second time you've had me in tears over something you said today, but I can't repeat the first one.
She's beautiful, right? She's gorgeous. She can fight as well. But she's a fucking gobshite, man. As soon as she started talking, I thought, oh, why? This is not the time for your political views, my lovely. Keep it stum and take her off into the background. Do you know she beat Erin Blanchfield? She's beat a couple of decent... Jazz Davicius she's beaten. And I think she beat Erin Blanchfield. So she's good on a day, but she's very wrestle heavy, grapple heavy, and she lost that first round. But Araujo's nearly 40.
She's very grapple heavy. It's her first fight back since Thug Rose beat her nearly a year ago.
Yeah.
As pleasing on the eye as she is, we'll say, to be a bit PC, she's still not going to get the opportunity from Dana. She may get Dana privilege further down the line, but right now, until she shows something with her hands, she's probably going to remain, unfortunately, on the prelims of pay-per-view cards or on fight nights that are still at the apex. But
I think the worst thing she did it worked better for her when she was with Brian Ortega because she got some of his sort of. He was on a bit of a crest of a wave. Then weren't it? Let's touch briefly on some of the Jacoby Smith. I hate this because I love Nico Price. Got a really good submission. He's now gone 11-0. They sort of sent Nico. I think Nico Price was one of the heaviest underdogs in UFC history. I think last night I got him at 12-1. So I don't. Is that 12? Is that 1,200?
Yeah,
plus 1,200. I don't know.
Plus 1,200.
Janata Denise got a nice win, decision win against Alvin Hines.
Comfortable, mate. Comfortable, wasn't he, for 15 minutes? He never really got out of second gear.
Hines was 7-1 going into that fight. What did we... Let me just double check. 317. I'm just watching... I mean, I might as well talk about it. Beneil Dariush. Not a lot of people had him to win that fight. I did, by the way. I picked him to win that fight. I believe Meccano's best work, as always, at 145, not 155. But, you know, where does he go from here?
Dariush?
Yeah. I mean, Sarukian beat the dog shit out of him. Well, sparked him inside a round.
And that's the issue, mate. Where do you go when the mustard, the cream of the division has already beaten you? I think I don't know,
Gaethje?
mate. Look,
Gaethje?
that's where I was going to
Maybe.
go. I was going to go Gaethje Hooker kind of path, but I don't know, mate. Lightweight is a really difficult division to call at the moment because you
There's a
just
massive gap, isn't there,
Yeah.
between like the top 5 and 6 and everybody else. It was a good win for him that he needed. Who else? Peyton Talbot. He is impressing me every time I see him fight, and he was the underdog in that fight last night against Felipe Lima. Paulo Costa was meant to fight Kopolov on last night's card. I think he's been bumped to the. Is he being bumped to next week, or is it? No,
no, he's been bumped.
He hasn't. He's been bumped to 318.
Let's not talk about that 318 cards. Jesus Christ.
No, let's not. Have you got any other takes from last night's UFC? I know we don't really normally talk about it. But...
Paddy Pimblett, Madrid, please. Not just because I like a trip over.
Well, Dana shut it down on his post-fight. He said, we're not even thinking about Spain, but last year...
You were all over Spain. You were all over going to
He had fucking Ramos sat ringside, and they were talking about the Bernabeu and
wherever that fight happens. But me and you had a conversation this morning, and that fight between arguably the 2 biggest UFC stars in Europe outside of Tom Aspinall at the moment, and a few others you could probably put in there.
That's why Ilya did it. He knows.
Needs to be over it, mate. It needs to be in Europe. Will we stay awake at 4 a.m. to watch it in America?
Absolutely.
Yes. But from a transcending point of view and from a gate point of view, it has to be here. Has to be in Europe.
And undercard, Toporia's brother could fight Shamrock. Same gym. I'm filling a card for you there.
That's a fight, mate.
Hunter, Mick, you know where I am. I'm putting
5%. That's all he wants. He only wants 5.
I did see it on Shamrock's. If I'm honest, I'm not going to take credit for putting that fight together. I should have just left it, but Shem's my boy, man. I'm not nicking his shit. But no, Dana, get Shem and Topuria on the undercard. It was a great night. There was some great fights. Unfortunately, I slept through them all, but I watched them all at 7 a.m.
Same.
You will.
Done the same, yeah.
If you're not following Liam on socials, it's Liam_Tully9 on X. You can catch him with me. Tuesday night, we should be back to normal for No Punches Pulled. Liam's Fight Night Picks will be making a comeback. You will speak to me and Liam at some point again this week. Thanks for everybody that got involved. Hand History Vault, DJ Pat, thanks for joining us, commenting and interacting. You can catch me, Jay's Fight Talk, on X, Instagram, all my socials are Jay's Fight Talk. There's plenty of content that you can go back and look through the archives, I want to say, but there's about a year's worth of content that me and Liam and Sam have done. I've done some shorts. Thanks for